Good morning, Master Arrowhead. Good morning, class. I'm Cadet Harry Liebisch, and today I'll be briefing you on CHL on college campuses, and this is an unclassified briefing. During my briefing, I'll be going over the purpose, what is CHL, gun laws by different states, my 3 possible courses of action, and a request for decision at the end. So the purpose of this briefing is to reach a consensus on how to handle gun laws on college campuses. CHL stands for Concealed Handgun License. It's a license that allows an individual to carry a weapon, a handgun, in a concealed manner, so under a jacket, but not an open way, so you cannot be seen. Every state except for Vermont has a CHL license. Vermont does not require one for you to conceal carry. And there are 2 ways a state will issue concealed carry, either a may issue or shall issue. May issue means that a local police department has the discretion to issue an individual concealed handgun license. New York State is an example of a may issue state. And a shall issue is that if you meet the requirements preset by the state, that you will receive your license, no matter what. If you pass those requirements, you will get it. And some different gun laws by state. Each state obviously varies when it comes to strictness. An example, New York is one of the more stricter states. However, our neighbors right next door, Vermont, is the most lenient state in the union. They have no laws pretty much regarding owning a weapon except one step set by the federal government. And different laws that a state can apply is open carry permits, magazine sizes, and license requirements. So, for example, in most of New York State, it is illegal to open carry. However, some counties will allow you to have a permit. But in Vermont, you can open carry wherever you want. Magazine size, an example is that in New York State, a magazine must be 10 rounds. However, it cannot be filled past 7 rounds. Another state example in that is Virginia. You're allowed to have a magazine up to 20 rounds, so just the difference right there. And different license requirements. Some states require an individual to license every weapon they own. Some states don't. It varies across the union. And this map right here indicates what's different states' laws on concealed carry on college campuses. There's only 3 states, Idaho, Utah, and Colorado, that allow any individual with a concealed carry permit to carry their weapon on college campuses. There are several states, like Mississippi and Arkansas, that the state allows the individual to carry, but they also let schools decide which individuals can bring it onto their campuses. For example, New York is one of the few states that actually completely prohibits concealed carry on any college campus within the state. No questions. And also another big way that states concealed carry is they only allow it in their parking lots. So, example, Texas, Florida, Georgia, many of the southern states. You can bring your weapon on campus, but it must be in the parking lot and in your locked car. So the first course of action is how it's currently being run, and it's let each state decide. The facts is that each state will have the right to decide on whether or not they will allow concealed carry on their campuses. The assumption is that there will be a variety of laws differing between each state on whether or not an individual can carry their weapon on their college campuses. The reasoning is that it's not up to the federal government to decide on matters that pertain to the state. And the conclusion is each state will have the right to choose how the gun control laws on the college campuses work, and that there'll be a great variety of laws differing between states, which can cause disagreements. The second course of action is to ban concealed carry on college campuses completely. The facts is that carrying a concealed weapon on college campuses will be prohibited on in all 50 states. The assumptions is that prohibiting guns on college campuses will lead to a safer environment for learning, and that is not necessary for an individual to carry a weapon on their college campuses. The reasoning is that allowing guns to be brought on college campuses could potentially lead to deadly shootings. And the conclusion is that the ban on guns on college campuses could lead to a safer environment for education. However, this will anger individuals who have the viewpoint of anti-gun control. The third possible course of action is to allow individuals to carry their weapons carry their weapons. The facts is that individuals with a concealed handgun license will be able to carry weapons on college campuses. The assumptions is that allowing guns to be carried on college campuses does not necessarily lead to shootings, and it could actually possibly prevent them. The reasoning is that it is an American's right to carry a gun where they want if they meet the requirements for a permit, and it could potentially prevent possible shootings. And the conclusion is that Americans with a concealed handgun license will be able to carry their weapons on college campuses. review, I've gone over the purpose, what is CHL, different gun laws by different states, and the 3 possible courses of action. Are there any questions?
Do you have any example of CHL like open campus in the States?
Sorry, can you
Like,
say that again?
do you have any example of a campus that allows
Uh,
CHL?
Yeah, Boise State. It's in Idaho. It's one of the few states that allows any individual to carry the weapon. And if you have a concealed handgun license and you're a student at Boise State, you're allowed to bring your weapon.
Were there any troubles?
Were there any
Like,
trouble?
were there any trouble because of the CHL? No.
Only in trouble, Cap.
When you're talking about the laws for each state, you mentioned the thing about magazine size and how in New York you can have a 10-round magazine, but you can only fill it with 7 rounds. Do you know what like the train of thought behind that is, or like why wouldn't they just make it like a smaller magazine?
Actually, well, obviously to decrease to 10-round magazines, to decrease the amount they can shoot all at once, and to decrease that to 7 rounds. Again, probably just to lower the amount of ammunition an individual can fire in one consecutive round before having to reload. Besides that, I can get back to you on that even later.
Can you just tell me what your preferred course of action was again?
Third?
Yeah, your preferred.
Preferred?
Yeah.
My preferred course of action is to keep it the way it is, so course of action number 1. If we completely ban concealed handgun license in college campuses, I feel that shooters could look at it and say, well, there's not going to be anyone with a weapon on campus, so I could go and open fire, and then 5 minutes until the police come and try to stop me. That's enough time to do some harm. And if we allow completely to any individual with a concealed handgun license, again, that does not necessarily prevent shootings. An individual with a license can still commit the crime. But I also believe that this is a matter of the state's rights, and I feel it's not the federal government's job to decide whether or not states should allow or disallow their campuses to have their students carry guns.
Well, from like a nationwide perspective, like could the federal government actually ban guns on college campuses across like the United States?
For the most part,
I mean, I know it's kind of an interpretation thing, but think of the conversation that is.
well, yes and no. They could technically put out a law, but that would require a lot more planning because most college campuses are run by states. You know, State University of New York, Binghamton, that's run by New York State, not by the federal government. So it would take a lot of planning and approval from the states to whether ban or allow completely across the country. It technically is possible to require a lot of work by the federal government and the state government.
So when you're talking about like it's a state law, does that law apply to like private schools too?
Yes.
Okay.
There's actually Colorado College, it's a private school out in Colorado, tried to ban concealed handgun licenses on their campus. However, Colorado, one of the 3 states that allows any individual with a concealed handgun license to carry, they actually sued the school and forced them to allow students that have the license to bring it on campus.
Yeah, just going back to Cap's question, I would imagine that the 7 rounds in a 10-round magazine comes from the idea that some weapon systems probably aren't going to have a 7-round magazine, and they probably didn't want to restrict completely, you know, what people could use, you know, and crap, I can't use my gun anymore, so they probably came up with that rule to kind of mediate the situation.
What's the current federal law on concealed handguns on college campuses?
Current federal government does not have a law. It's completely up to the states to decide where. The federal government, its policy on concealed handgun licenses that you're required to have a background check. But besides that, it's up to the states to decide if you get your concealed handgun license, and then from there it's up to them to decide whether or not the college campuses in the state allow individuals.
You could make the argument that like having the states decide it would be just as dangerous as for certain states as completely banning it, because like a shooter could just do their research, be like, all right, New York, they don't allow it, so I can just go on to Syracuse and start shooting, and no one, like, it'll be, like you said, 5 minutes until the police show up. So, I mean, you can make the argument that either way, it's kinda, like, I mean, obviously for certain states, like in Colorado, they're probably gonna be less inclined, but here in New York, they'll be just as inclined as even if it was banned, completely banned. I'm just playing devil's advocate a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a tricky subject to, you know, make a policy on. Obviously, I'm not a policymaker, so I don't exactly have 100% of the information that they use to make their policies. However, it is a states' rights issue, and that is a big issue that, going back from when we first became a country, that the states have a right to make policies, and this is definitely one I believe that they should be able to make policy on.
If you're from out of state, but you have a concealed carry permit from another
You need to
state,
have
would
one
you-
from the
Oh,
current state you're
okay.
residing. That can depend on some states. For example, Vermont, if you have a concealed handgun license from New York and you go to the University of Vermont, you can carry, because Vermont recognizes every state's concealed handgun license, but because New York is a very restrictive state compared to others, so if you want, from Vermont, come into our beautiful Syracuse, obviously you can't, but let's say if you're in a state like New Hampshire, where they leave it up to their schools. If you're from Vermont, then it comes to, does Vermont recognize, no, does New Hampshire recognizes Vermont's concealed handgun license? And then it comes down to that.
And, would you be able to apply for,
Yeah.
Another state's concealed carry?
If you become a resident of state, you're able to apply for their concealed handgun license.
Okay.
The current states you mentioned, like Idaho and Colorado, say like a student or teacher has concealed carry, do they have to like kind of register it with the university so the university has a record of the people that are carrying on
That's up to
campus?
each individual university to make sure their students can, you could put that within your policy, saying that each university has to have each individual with a concealed handgun license registered, but currently that's just up to each individual university.
Okay. Yep, that's it for the questions.
That's right. I'd like to request a decision.
Same. What were what's COA 2 again?
COA 2 is to, not that, is to ban concealed handgun licenses on college campuses.
What was COA 3?
COA 3 is to allow concealed handgun license on college campuses.
I'm gonna go with COA 3, and for the reason that I think with